Monterey Car Week is basically Christmas for car people. Every August, the biggest brands in the world roll up to the California coast and start pulling covers off icons that most of us can only dream about. And every year, there's always that one reveal that breaks the internet. Every major brand, every collector, every enthusiast, all in one place. So today we're going to look back and go through some of the greatest Monterey moments ever. The cars that made everyone stop scrolling and just stare. And trust me, there are some real icons on this list. So the first car on this list is the Apollo EVO, a car that was turning heads when it was spotted at Monterey Car Week in 2025, before its full production reveal dropped in September of that year. Now most of you probably have never heard of Apollo, and that's exactly what makes this car so interesting. Apollo is a small German hypercar company that builds cars in runs of just 10 units per model, and that makes their cars more rare than a McLaren F1. The Apollo EVO is the successor to their previous car, the Apollo Intesa Emisione, and it takes everything that makes this car extreme and pushes it even further. We're talking about a naturally aspirated 6.3-litre Ferrari V12 engine producing 800 horsepower. No turbos, no hybrid systems, no electric motors helping it along. Just a pure, screaming V12 that revs all the way up to 9,000 RPM. Wrapped in bodywork that looks like it came straight out of a comic book. The carbon fiber chassis is 10% lighter and 15% stiffer than its predecessor. And the aerodynamics were inspired directly by Le Mans hypercar race cars. And just like the car before it, and in true Apollo fashion, only 10 will ever exist. That level of exclusivity, that level of purity in a world that's rushing towards electrification is exactly why the Apollo EVO earns a spot on this list. The next car I want to speak about is the McLaren W1, revealed at Monterey Car Week at the Quail in 2025. And this one carries a weight that goes far beyond just the numbers. But to understand why, you have to go back to 1992, when the McLaren F1 was built. 3 seats, a naturally aspirated BMW V12 in the middle, and a top speed of 240 miles per hour. It was so ahead of its time that it held the title of the world's fastest production car for over a decade, and it still remains the fastest car with a naturally aspirated engine. Then in 2013, McLaren gave us the P1, a hybrid hypercar that took everything the F1 stood for and dragged it into the modern era, with over 900 horsepower and a design that made jaws drop everywhere it went. But the P1 wasn't a replacement for the F1, it was a statement. And for over 30 years, the F1 remained the greatest car McLaren ever built, until now, arguably with the W1. It has more than 1,200 horsepower from a hybrid V8, a top speed north of 217 miles per hour, and as we expected, all 399 examples sold out at over $2 million each before most people even knew it existed. But what makes the W1 truly iconic isn't just what it does, it's what it represents. McLaren spent over 30 years building toward this moment, and the fact that they finally felt ready to attempt a true successor to the F1 tells you everything about how seriously they took it. That kind of legend, that kind of pressure, and that level of execution is exactly why the McLaren W1 belongs on this list. And speaking of legacy, the next car I want to speak about takes us all the way back to 2018, and it's a car that cemented a very different kind of legend. And that's no other than the Lamborghini Aventador SVJ, which was revealed at the Quail during Monterey Car Week of 2018. And the moment the cover came off, everyone knew they were looking at something special. The SVJ, which stands for Super Veloce Jota, and it was the most extreme version of the Aventador ever built, the final. The most savage expression of what one of the greatest naturally aspirated V12 supercars ever made. It produced 770 horsepower from a 6.5-litre naturally aspirated V12 that screamed all the way up to 8,500 RPM. And at the time of its reveal, it had just set a new production car world record at the Nürburgring, which was just over 6 minutes and 45 seconds, beating out cars that cost significantly more and had way more downforce. But what made the SVJ truly iconic wasn't just the lap record. It was the fact that everyone knew that the end was coming. The world was shifting towards electrification, hybrid systems were taking over, and the days of a raw, naturally aspirated V12 with no assistance and no filters were numbered. The SVJ felt like Lamborghini's way of saying, one more before we go. Let us show you one last time exactly what this engine is capable of. And they delivered something that people will talk about for decades. That combination of timing, performance, and emotion is exactly why the Aventador SVJ earns its place as one of the true icons of Monterey Car Week. Next I want to speak about a car similar to the SVJ, and that's no other than the Ferrari 812 Superfast. It made its North American debut at Pebble Beach during Monterey Car Week in 2017. arriving just 1 year before the Aventador SVJ. And you can't argue with this. These two cars together represent something that the world is still grieving. Because while everyone is talking about electrification and hybrid systems and the future of performance, Ferrari and Lamborghini at this time were building what many people now consider the two greatest naturally aspirated supercars ever made. The A12 is powered by a massive 6.5-litre naturally aspirated V12 up front, producing just under 800 horsepower and screaming all the way up to 8,900 RPM, making it the most powerful naturally aspirated road car that Ferrari had ever built at the time. And just like the SVJ on the Lamborghini side, it was the kind of car that content creators and car enthusiasts couldn't stop filming. Because straight piped, these two cars produce a sound that no hybrid, no turbo, and certainly no electric motor will ever be able to replicate. People don't just watch clips of these cars, they save them, they go back to them, they play them over and over just to hear that noise once again. But unfortunately, here's the uncomfortable truth. Whatever comes next from Ferrari and Lamborghini, no matter how fast it is, how quick the 0 to 60 time is, and no matter how impressive the numbers are, it is already pale in comparison to what these two cars represented. The A12 and the SVJ aren't just great cars, but they represent the last of something irreplaceable, and that's exactly why the A12 and the SVJ belong on this list. And that brings me on to the next icon that was revealed again at Quail during Monterey Car Week in 2018, and that's the Bugatti Divo. The Bugatti Divo on paper shares its bones with the Bugatti Chiron, the same 8-litre quad turbocharged W16 engine producing 1,500 horsepower. But Bugatti didn't build the Divo to be faster than the Chiron in a straight line. It was built for the track. They stripped out weight, added more aggressive aerodynamics, increased the downforce by 90 kilos compared to the Chiron, and completely retuned the chassis to make it sharper, more agile, and more focused on the driving experience rather than raw top speed. The result was a car that looked unlike anything Bugatti had ever built, and it was limited to just 40 units sold at over $5 million each. Every single one of these cars were already sold out before the car was even revealed at the Quail. Yeah, these are customers that spent over $5 million on a car that they have never seen, never driven, and never even sat in. That kind of confidence from both the brand and its customers is something only a handful of car companies in the world could ever pull off. And that exclusivity combined with the sheer odyssey of what Bugatti built is exactly why the Divo is an icon of Monterey Car Week. Now I want to speak about something a bit more niche, a car that you probably don't know about. And that's the Gordon Murray T50. This icon was revealed at the Quail once again during Monterey Car Week of 2021. And to understand why this can be considered an icon and why it gets a spot on this list, you first need to understand who Gordon Murray actually is. Gordon is actually the man who designed the McLaren F1, a car that we spoke about earlier, and as I've said, this car held its title for the world's fastest production car for over a decade. And it's a car that McLaren spent 30 years not daring to replace. So when Gordon announced that he was building his own car, under his own name, and in his own way, the entire car world stopped and paid attention. And what he built was the T50, a naturally aspirated 3.9-litre V12 producing over 650 horsepower, revving all the way up to 12,100 RPM. And this makes this the highest revving naturally aspirated V12 ever fitted to a road car. And in true McLaren F1 fashion, it had 3 seats. But what really made this car stand out was the giant 400mm fan mounted at the rear to actively manage its aerodynamics. And this is an idea Gordon pioneered decades ago in Formula 1. The car just weighs 986 kilograms, which is lighter than a modern hot hatch. And in a world chasing bigger numbers, more power, more technology, and more complexity, Gordon went in the complete opposite direction and built the purest, most driver-focused supercar of the modern era. No hybrid systems, no screens, no gimmicks. Just a man with more than 50 years of experience building a car he always wanted to build, exactly the way he wanted to build it. That philosophy, that level of conviction, and that result is exactly why the Gordon Murray T50 is one of the true icons of Monterey. And that legendary lineage didn't just stop there. A couple of years later, Gordon revealed the T50S Niki Lauda, and it made its US debut at the Quail during Monterey Car Week in 2023. And just like the standard T50, if you could even call it that, felt completely alien to everyone else around it when it was revealed. But to understand this car, you first need to understand who Niki Lauda was. Niki Lauda was a 3-time Formula One world champion and was considered one of the most fearless and brilliant racing drivers in history. And he happened to be a former teammate of Gordon himself during his days as an F1 engineer. So when Gordon decided to build a track-only version of his already extraordinary T50, he named it after his old friend and teammate. And this car wasn't just a tribute, it was a statement about what the car was supposed to represent. The T50S Niki Lauda weighs just 852 kilograms, produces 762 horsepower from the same screaming Cosworth V12 engine that revs to 12,100 RPM. And the car manages to generate up to 1,200 kilograms of downforce through a combination of the massive rear fan, the massive wing, adjustable diffuser and front splitter, all inspired directly by Gordon's own car designs from his Formula One days. Only 25 of these icons will ever be built, and each one is named after Gordon Murray's personal Grand Prix victories. That level of detail and that level of personal meaning behind every single decision is what separates this car from everything else on this list. And speaking about this list, here's something worth thinking about. Every single car on this list exists because of a moment, a specific place, a specific crowd, and a level of genuine excitement that you simply cannot manufacture. That same excitement, that same culture that made these cars iconic in the first place, it lives somewhere else too. It lives in the people, it lives in the enthusiast, it lives in you and I, and in the automotive creators that built the entire world around these cars. But that world, unfortunately, has changed. And if you want to understand why the world today looks so different compared to just a few years ago in terms of automotive YouTube, I'd recommend you watch this video next. Thanks for watching.